8-7, adding and subtracting radicals practice. Now these are your solutions here. So if we look at the first one, I'm just going to go each one. Number 1, we have 8 square root 3 minus 6 square root 3. So because our radicals are the same here, we're going to keep the square root of 3 and then just subtract the 8 minus 6, which is 2. So that's 2 square root 3. For 2, we have 9 square root 5 plus 4 square root 5. So once again, our radicals are the same, which is that square root of 5. So we are going to keep the radical and then add the 9 and the 4 to get 13 square root 5. For 3, we have negative 13 square root 17 minus 7 square root 17. So we are going to keep the square root of 17 and then subtract the negative 13 minus 7 is negative 20. So that's negative 20 square root 17. For 4, we have 5 square root 80 minus 12 square root 5. So I'm going to first simplify that square root of 80. The 80 is 8 and 10. 8 is 2 and 4. 4 is 2 and 2. 10 is 2 and 5. Two groups of 2 here, so 2 times 2 is 4 times the 5 that's in front. That's going to give me 20 square root 5 minus 12 square root 5. So 20 minus 12 is 8 square root 5. For 5, we have 5 square root 3 plus 2 square root 75. The 75 is 3 and 25. The 25 is 5 and 5, group of 5. Multiply that with a 2. It's giving us 10 square root 3 plus 5 square root 3. So this is 15 square root 3. For 6, we have negative 2 square root 24 minus 3 square root 6. The 24 is 4 and 6. The 4 is 2 and 2. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 square root 6 minus 3 square root 6. Negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7 square root 6. For 7, we have 3 square root 32 minus 4 square root 63. So the 32 is 4 and 8. The 8 is 4 and 2. 2 4s pair up. 4 times 3 is 12 square root 2. The 63 is 3 and 21. The 21 is 3 and 7. So that's going to give us negative 12 square root 7. We cannot go any further with this, so this is our answer. For 8, we have 3 square root 45 plus 7 square root 36. The 45 is 9 and 5. The 9 is 3 and 3. So 3 times 3 is 9 square root 5. Plus the 7 is being multiplied by 6. So 7 times 6 is 42. So 9 square root 5 plus 42 is our answer for number 8. For 9, we have 5 square root 28 minus 2 square root 45. So the square root of that 28, 4 and 7. The 4 is 2 and 2. So 2 times 5 is 10 square root 7. The 45 is 9 and 5. 9 is 3 and 3. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6 square root 5. So 10 square root 7 minus 6 square root 5. For 10, we have negative 4 square root 45 plus 3 square root 147. The 45 once again is 9 and 5. The 9 is 3 and 3. So that's going to be negative 12 square root 5. The 147, we have 7 and 21. The 21 is 7 and 3. The 7's pair up, so 7 times 3 is 21, and the 3 stays underneath. So we have negative 12 square root 5 plus 21 square root 3. For 11, we have negative 11 square root 8 minus 7 square root 12. the 8 is 2 and 4. The 4 is 2 and 2. This is going to give us negative 22 square root 2. The 12 is 4 and 3. 4 is 2 and 2, so that's 7 times 2, which is negative 14 square root 3. So negative 21 square root 2 minus 14 square root 3. For 12, we have the square root of 150 minus 5 square root 96. The 150 is 15 and 10. The 15 is 3 and 5. 10 is 5 and 2. So this is going to be 5 square root 6. The 96 is 4 and 24. 24 is 4 and 6. So that's going to be negative 20 square root 6. 5 minus 20 is negative 15 square root 6 for our answer. For 13, we have 9 square root 13 minus 6 square root of 11 plus the square root of 13. That invisible coefficient, so to say, for the 13 is the 1. So 9 plus 1 is 10 square root 13 minus 6 square root of 11. For 14, we have negative 4 square root 2 plus 6 square root 72 minus 8 square root 32. The 72 is 9 and 8. 9 is 3 and 3. 8 is 2 and 4. 4 is 2 and 2. So that's 6 times 6 is 36 square root 2. The 32 is 4 and 8. 8 is 4 and 2. So that's negative 8 times 4, which is negative 32 square root 2. All of these are like terms, so we're just going to combine them. Negative 4 plus 36 is 32. Minus 32 is 0. 0 times anything is 0, so our answer is just the 0. I'm just going to move up here so I have more room. 15. We have 9 square root 13. I just did this one. So 15. So we're on 15, which is 5 square root 28 plus 2 square root 7 minus square root 14. Okay, that's much better. The 28 is 4 and 7. 4 is 2 and 2. So this is 10 square root 7 plus 2 square root 7 minus the square root of 14. We're going to combine our like terms, which is the 10 and the 2. So this is 2 square root 7 minus the square root of 14. For 16, we have negative 3 square root 72 plus 6 square root 52 minus 7 square root 128. So this 72 is 9 and 8. 9 is 3 and 3. 8 is 4 and 2. 4 is 2 and 2. So 6 square root 2 times negative 3 is negative 18 square root 2. For this square root of 52, 52 is 4 and 13. The 4 is 2 and 2. So 2 times 6 is 12 square root 13. The 128 is 4 and 32. 32 is 4 and 8. 8 is 2 and 4. 4 is 2 and 2. So this 2 times 4 times negative 7. 2 times 4 is 8 times negative 7 is negative 56 square root 2. So we have like terms with the negative 18 and the negative 56. We're going to keep the sign, add the numbers. 6 plus 8 is 14. Carry the 1. 6 plus 1 is 7. So negative 74 square root 2 plus 12 square root 13. For 17, we have a negative square root of 338 minus the square root of 200 plus the square root of 162. So 338. We are going to do, let's do 2 and 169. 169 is 13 and 13. So this is negative 13 square root 2. 200 is 2 and 100, which is 10 and 10. So this is negative 10 square root 2. And the 162 is going to be 2 and 81. 81 is 9 and 9, so that's 9 square root 2. Combine those like terms. Square root 2, square root 2, square root 2. So add up your terms or subtract. Negative 13 minus 10 is negative 23 plus 9 gives us negative 14. So this is negative 14 square root 2. For our next one, we will be doing 18. So 18 is 4 square root 112 plus 5 square root 56 minus 9 square root 126. The 112 is 2 and 56. 56 is 2 and 28. 28 is 4 and 7. The 4 is 2 and 2. So 2 times 2 times 4, or 4 times 4 is 16 square root 7. For the 56, we have 2 and 28. The 28 is 2 and 14. 14 is 2 and 7. So 2 times 5 is 10 square root 14. The 126 is 6 and 21. 6 is 2 and 3. 21 is 3 and 7. So negative 9 times 3 is negative 27 square root 14. Combine your like terms here, which is the 10 square root 14 minus 27 square root 14. This is going to be 16 square root 7 minus 7 square root 14. It's not 17, I'm sorry. Minus 17 square root 14. There we go. All right. So for 19, we have, I'm actually going to make a new page here. All right, so for 19, we are going to have I don't like that being so big, so we are going to, can't erase it, so that's okay. There we go. Alright, so for 19, we have the square root of 55 minus 7 square root 5 over 11. So for this, that 55 is just 5 and 11. We're not going to be able to simplify it. So we are going to multiply the entire thing, or put the entire thing into a fraction form. So this is going to give us the square root of 55 over 1 minus 7 square root 5 over the square root of 11. If we multiply top and bottom by that first fraction by the square root of 11, we can go ahead and simplify this. So we have the square root of 5 times 11 on the top over the square root of 11 minus 7 square root 5 over the square root of 11. Those 11s pair up, we bring one out, so 11 square root 5 minus 7 square root 5 all over the square root of 11. 11 minus 7 is 4. So we are going to have 4 square root 5 over the square root of 11. Again, you cannot leave the square root in the denominator, so we're going to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 11 to give us 4 square root 11 over 11. I'm sorry, 55. 4 square root 55 all over 11. For 20, we have square root 3 minus square root of 1/3. So again, we're going to rewrite this. Square root 3 over 1 minus square root 1 over square root 3. So multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3 on that first fraction to get like denominator so we can subtract. We're going to have the square root of 9, which is 3, over the square root of 3 minus the square root of 1 over the square root of 3. So this is just going to be written as 3 minus the square root of 1 over the square root of 3. Once again, you cannot leave that denominator with the radical in it, so we're going to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3. We're going to distribute it into our denominator to get 3 square root 3 minus the square root of 3 all over 3. That you need to simplify even further. So 3 minus 1 is 2, square root 3 over 3. For 21, we have 3 square root 18 plus square root 2 over square root 25. We're going to simplify this. That 18 is 3 and 6. 6 is 3 and 2. So 3 times 3 is 9, square root 2 over 1 plus the square root of 2 over 5. So this is going to then become 45 square root 2 over 5 plus square root 2 over 5. 45 plus 1 is 46 square root 2 all over 5. For 22, we have 2 square root 75 plus the square root of 3 over 16. So the 75 is 3 and 25. The 25 is 5 and 5. So we're going to have 10 square root 3 over 1 plus the square root of 3 over 4. Multiply top and bottom of that first fraction by 4. So 40 square root 3 plus the square root of 3 all over 4. Add the 40 and the 1. It's going to be 41 square root 3 over 4. For 23, we have the square root of 5 over the square root of 11 minus the square root of 11 over the square root of 5. So what we're first going to do here for this one is multiply your common denominator for both of them. Your common denominator between these two fractions is the square root of 55. We're going to multiply top and bottom of that second one by square root of 11. First one would be by the square root of 5, top and bottom. So this is going to be 5 over the square root of 55 minus 11 over the square root of 55. The 5 minus 11 is going to give us negative 6 over the square root of 55. Now we multiply top and bottom here by the square root of 55 to get rid of the radical in the denominator. So this is going to be negative 6 square root 55 over 55. For 24, we have the square root of 2 over 7, which is the square root of 2 over the square root of 7 minus the square root of 7 over the square root of 2. These common denominators, the square root of 14, so top and bottom, square root of 7, square root of 7, square root of 2, square root of 2. So this is going to be 2 minus 7 over the square root of 14. 2 minus 7 is negative 5, so negative 5 over the square root of 14. Multiply top and bottom by that square root of 14. So this is negative 5 square root 14 over 14. For 25, we have 4 square root 5 over square root 6 minus the square root of 3 over the square root of 10. So here we can rewrite this as 4 square root 5 over 6 minus the square root of 3 over square root 10. Our least common denominator there is the square root of 30. So top and bottom of the second one is going to be by 3 square root 3. Top and bottom of the second one is going to be by the square root of 5. So this is going to be 4 times 5 minus 3 all over the square root of 30. 4 times 5 is 20 minus 3 is 17 over the square root of 30. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 30. So this is going to give us 17 square root 30 all over 30. For 26, we have 5 square root 16 over the square root of 3 minus the square root of 9 over the square root of 2. So we're going to simplify this first, so that 5 times the square root of 16 is 5 times 4 all over the square root of 3 minus 3 over the square root of 2. Least common denominator here is the square root of 6, so top and bottom of the first we're going to multiply by square root 2. Square root 3. So we have 20 square root 2 over the square root of 6 minus 3 square root 3 over the square root of 6. So we are going to bring this together as one fraction. We cannot combine our numerators, so it's just going to be 20 square root 2 minus 3 square root 3 all over the square root of 6. For 27, we have 3 square root 3 minus 2 square root 12 plus 4 square root 1/3. Alright, so with this one, I would like to simplify that 2 square root 12 first. That 12 is 4 and 3. The 4 is 2 and 2. So 2 times 2 is negative 4 square root 3 for that one. So with this, I'm going to combine those two first numbers. The 3 minus the 4 is going to give us a negative square root 3 over 1 plus 4 square root 1 over square root 3. Your least common denominator is the square root of 3. So we're going to multiply the top and bottom of that first fraction by the square root of 3. So this is going to give us a negative 3 plus 4 square root 1, which is just 1. So that's just 4 over square root 3. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1 over the square root of 3. We're going to multiply top and bottom by that square root of 3 to give us the square root of 3 over 3. This one was 27, so 28. We have 8 square root 10 minus 3 square root 40 plus 5 square root 1 over the square root of 10. So the 40 is 4 and 10, 4 is 2 and 2. So these are going to give us 8 square root 10 minus 6 square root 10 plus 5 over square root 10. So 8 square root 10 minus 6 square root 10 is 2 square root 10 over 1 minus 5 over the square root of 10. We're going to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 10 for the first fraction. So this is going to give us 2 times 10 minus 5 all over the square root of 10. So 2 times 10 is 20 minus 5 is 15 over the square root of 10. We multiply top and bottom by the square root of 10. So this is going to give us 15 square root 10 all over 10. The 15 and the 10 simplify to be 2 and 3. So 3 square root 10 all over 2 is our solution. Let's see where I have more room here. Oh, I have a lot of room. Okay, so for 29, we have 2 square root 7 over 2, square root of 2, sorry, plus 4 square root 7 over the square root of 8, minus 1 half times the square root of 98. So that's just going to be the square root of 98 over 2. Alright, so first thing we can do here is least common denominator. If we do that, I actually want to simplify these first. This is going to be a lot easier if we simplify this. That square root of 8 is 2 and 4. I don't know why. There we go. 2 and 4. 4 is 2 and 2, so 2 square root 2. So 2 square root 7 over the square root of 7 plus 4 square root 7 over 2 square root 2 oops, this is 2, minus the square root of 98. 98 is 2 and 49. The 49 is 7 and 7, so that's 7 square root 2 over 2. Alright, so I want to do my least common denominator here. Least common denominator is 2 square root 2. So this is going to multiply by 2. This is not, middle one's not going to multiply by anything. Last one is going to multiply by square root 2. So this is going to be 4 square root 7 plus 4 square root 7 minus 7 square root 4 all over 2 square root 2. From here, the 4 plus 4 is going to give me 8 square root 7 minus 7 square root 4, which is 7 times 2, all over 2 square root 2. So this is now going to give me 8 square root 7 minus 14 over 2 square root 2. We're going to multiply top and bottom here by the square root of 2 to give us 8 square root 14 minus 14 square root 2 all over 2 times 2, which is 4. From here, I'm going to have 8 square root 14 minus 14 square root 2 all over 4. I simplify the 8, the 14, and the 4 because they're all divisible by 2 to give me 4, negative 7, and 2. So this is 4 square root 14 minus 7 square root 2 all over 2. So 30, we have 3 square root 5 all over square root 12 plus the square root of 12 over the square root of 5 minus 1 square root 60 all over the square root of, I think it was 5. Nope, 3. And it's not square root, it's just 3. Alright, so I'm going to simplify what I can here. The 12 is 4 and 3. So 4 is 2 and 2. This is 3 square root 5 over 2 square root 3 plus 2 square root 3 over the square root of 5 minus the 60 is 6 and 10. 10 is 2 and 5. 6 is 3 and 2. So 2 2's. So this is 2 square root 15 over 3. My least common denominator between all of this is 6 square root 15. So the first fraction, I'm going to multiply 3 square root 5 by the top and the bottom. Second, I am going to multiply 6 square root 3. Oops. And then last one, I will multiply 2 square root 15 by both top and bottom. So I'm going to be left with 9 square root 25 plus 12 square root 9 minus 4 square root 225 all over 6 square root 15. So this is going to be 9 times 5 plus 12 times 3 minus 4 times 15 all over 6 square root 15. So 9 times 5 is 45 plus 36 minus 60 all over 6 square root 15. The 45 plus 36 minus 60 is 21. So this is going to give me 21 over 6 square root 15. I'm going to simplify this first before I rationalize that denominator. So I'm going to have a 2 and a 7. So 7 over 2 square root 15. I multiply top and bottom by the square root of 15. So it's 7 square root 15 over 2 times 15. So final answer is 7 square root 15 all over 30. For 31, I have 5 square root 3 times the square root of 6 plus 2 square root 8. So I'm going to distribute first. I have 5 square root 18 plus 10 square root 16. The 18 is 3 and 6, 6 is 3 and 2, so the 3 times 5 is 15 square root 2 plus 10 times 4. The square root of 16 is 4. So this is going to leave me with 15 square root 2 plus 40. For 32, we have 5 square root 2 times 4 square root 8 minus 2 square root 12. I distribute. So I'm going to have 20 square root 16 minus 10 square root 24. The square root of 16 is 4, so that's 20 times 4. And then the square root of 24 is 4 and 6. 6 is 2 and 3. The 6 is 2 and 2. So that's 10 times 2 square root 6. 20 times 4 is 80 minus 20 square root 6 is our answer. Alright, so for 33, we have 2 square root 49x cubed minus 3 square root 16x to the 5th. I'm going to simplify these. This 49x cubed underneath that radical is going to leave me with 2 times 7x square root x. For the square root of 16x to the 5th, that's going to be 4x squared square root x. So I'm going to multiply these. The 2 times 7x is 14x. Keep the square root of x after that. And then the negative 3 times 4x squared is going to be negative 12x squared square root x. Now, you can rewrite these, but you do not need to. So you can leave this like this, or you can write this as 14x minus 12x squared times x. So these 14x and that negative 12x squared would have to be in parentheses in front of the square root of x. Or you can put the square root of x in front and do the square root of x times 14x minus 12x squared as well. So that way you have factored out that square root of x. It's the same exact thing regardless of the 3 ways that you write it. For 34, we have 4 square root 72s to the 4th minus 2s square root 200s squared. So I'm going to simplify this. That 72 is 8 and 9 minus 3 and 3. 8 is 4 and 2. 4 is 2 and 2. So 2 times 3 is 6. So this is 4 times 6 square root 2s to the 4th. So that's 6s squared times the square root of 2. That 200 is 2 and 100. That 100 is 10 and 10. So 2 times 2s times 10s square root 2. Alright, so multiplying now. 4 times 6s squared is 24s squared. Keep the square root of 2. The 2s times 10s is 20s squared. Keep the square root of 2. So again, we can simplify this even further because we both have s squareds here. So 24 minus 20 is 4s squared square root 2. For 35, it is written as the square root of x squared over 16 plus x squared over 25. So in order to do this, you have to add these first before you can do anything else. So you have to come up with a like denominator between these two. So you have a 16 and you have a 25. They don't share any common factors, so you're most likely going to have to multiply the two to find your least common denominator, which would be 400. So if that's the case, you are going to multiply the top and bottom of the first fraction by 25, top and bottom of the second fraction by 16. So this is going to be 25x squared plus 16x squared all over 400. And we're taking the square root of that. So from here, the 25 plus the 16 is 41. So that's 41x squared over 400. And we're taking the square root of that. So the 400 is 4 times 100. The 100 is 10 times 10. The 4 is 2 times 2. So 2 times 10 is 20. And then the top, you're just going to take the x, square root 41 over 20. For 36, we have the square root of x squared over 49 minus x squared over 121. So again, we could do the same thing and multiply top and bottom by the other's denominator if you wanted to. Your 121 is 11 and 11. The 49 is 7 and 7. They're prime numbers, so you might as well go ahead and do that. So we are going to have 49x squared minus 121. It's going to be 121 x squared minus 49x squared all over 5,929. And that's all underneath the radical. From here, the square root of 5,929 is going to give us 77. The top, the 121 minus 49 is 72. So this is going to be 72x squared over, and that's the square root of that, over 77. The 72, once again, is 9 and 8. 9 is 3 and 3. 8 is 2 and 4. 4 is 2 and 2. So 2 times 3 is 6. Square root 2. Bring the x out as well. So 6x square root 2 all over 77. For 37, we have the square root of x squared over a squared plus x squared over b squared. So, least common denominator here is a squared, b squared. So we have b squared x squared plus a squared x squared all over a squared b squared, and we're taking the square root of that. The top, if you wanted to, you could factor out the x squared to where you had x squared times b squared plus a squared over the square root of a squared b squared. When you did this, it's the same thing as saying the square root of x squared times the square root of b squared plus a squared all over the square root of a squared b squared. So from here, it would just be x times the square root of b squared plus a squared all over ab. For our last one, number 38, we have the square root of x over a minus the square root of a over x. So least common denominator between these, or if you want, you can rewrite it as the square root of x over the square root of a minus the square root of a over the square root of x. Least common denominator is the square root of ax. So we're going to multiply top and bottom of the first by x, top and bottom of the second by a, and of course these are going to be the square roots of those. So we're going to have the square root of x squared over the square root of ax minus the square root of a squared over the square root of ax. Like denominator, so we can rewrite this as 1. It's going to be x minus a over the square root of ax. Now, you can't leave the radical in the denominator, so you're going to multiply the top and bottom by the square root of ax. So this is going to distribute into the top. So it's going to be x square root ax minus a square root ax all over ax.